AI and advanced solutions, they don't blink, they don't take a lunch break. You can literally say, show me any black Teslas with white hubcaps. They can differentiate an animal to a person. They can differentiate objects, a weapon to a car. Computer vision is accurately or more proactively than humans identifying vehicles, people, faces, objects, anomalies, and then providing these actionable insights to people. It's not replacing humans, it's automating what it's doing. It's really the combination of computer vision or artificial intelligence and human intelligence combined.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Property Pro Tips. I'm your host, Trevor Henson, and today we have the absolute pleasure of having one Miss Dara Riordan online with us to interview. Welcome, Dara.
Thanks for having me, Trevor. Glad to be here.
Miss Dara Riordan is a seasoned executive with over 20 years of leadership and experience in artificial intelligence, computer vision, and security. As the former president and COO of FaceFirst, she led innovations in facial recognition and video analytics for public safety and retail loss prevention. A respected voice in the tech and securities industry, Dara now advises startups and serves on multiple advisory boards, advocating the ethical and effective deployment of AI in real-world environments. So diving right in, first question, let's start at the high level. What are some of the most exciting and promising AI and video surveillance technologies you're seeing emerge in the property and property management and security space today?
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. I think some of the most promising video surveillance technologies, especially that are emerging in property management and security, I'd say are really when it comes to video analytics and the advancements of what it can do for processing that otherwise used to be done by humans. So the security landscape, as you know, is changing. I say it's not really an evolution, but more of a revolution. Security and safety is changing in almost every industry, but a key human principle is wanting to not only feel safe, but authentically be safe. And where do people want to feel safe the most, especially where they live? So I think it's really important for property managers who keep that safe space and tenants to be thinking about how surveillance has evolved. So the solutions regarding video analytics, where computer vision is accurately, often more accurately or more proactively than humans, identifying vehicles, people, faces, objects, anomalies, and then providing these actionable insights to people, human oversight, humans are reviewing them, but really alerting security personnel and flagging events or incidents that they should be watching. So it's far more scalable and adaptable than humans and more than any single human could process. So, I'd say really when it comes to the alerting and what you can use it for, there are four key solutions in property management. It starts with perimeter protection, so access control. Pin pads and fob keys, antiquated. They're not efficient, they're not effective, they can be lost, they can be shared, codes can be shared. So access control has really evolved to facial recognition, license plate recognition, iris, voice, sometimes using these combined for multi-factor authentication. It's really, really important that perimeter is secure. And so whether it's at the parking, whether it's checking in vendors or guests, it's allowing you to prevent tailgating, identify gray list, which is unknown individuals on a premise. It can also help with time and attendance. Did the vendor arrive? How long were they there? So that's really one key solution. A second is license plate recognition. I think parking areas and structures granting access, tracking plates for security, but also for investigations, hit and runs, car thefts, disturbances, and again, time and attendance for delivery. Were they on site? Did they arrive on time? And were they there at all? We're seeing a lot in solar guard powered towers. Really, these are the towers, if you've ever seen them, they've got cameras 360 degrees around, often strobe lights. These are effectively replacing security guards. Sometimes they're being used with automated messages being sent down using AI, by the way. Other times, those alerts and anomalies are detected on the video and it goes to a 24-hour command center where a security guard is down voicing down. But the technology is advanced where it can literally identify not just a person in a space that they shouldn't be or during a time, but it can have a message and generate and say, hey, the guy in the salmon pink shirt, you're not supposed to be here. Exit the premises. This is restricted. And we've identified and called law enforcement. So we're seeing these at construction sites and universities, but now multifamily homes and large corporate industrial where they can walk guests or associates or employees to their car late at night and provide, virtual assistance and really remove needing a guard there. I'd also say that they're being used very effectively where we're seeing transients or displaced communities setting up tents and, there's drug paraphernalia. They're keeping people up late at night and they're using these towers and letting off strobe lights, playing opera music, chiming down to them to displace them to go to a less populated area, but ultimately trying to prevent human confrontation and violence. And then the last I'd say is really just the overall CCTV analytics and computer vision that I touched on. Today, the technology has advanced where you can use text for investigation. So you can literally say, show me any black Teslas with white hubcaps, or show me cars with dented bumpers. And this is being used to look back and review videos. So when you think about the manual task of humans reviewing CCTV and how that would take previously hours, days, weeks, this is really
100%.
the evolution of automated security.
It is such a big deal in the property management space because one of the single biggest line items on any balance sheet or P&L statement, especially on like high
Guard
risk
services.
areas, is security guards, right?
Yeah.
Like by triple.
But Trevor, it doesn't have to
six
totally
figures.
replace them, right? It doesn't have to just replace them. This is taking away that burden of they could be in a command center somewhere else and still effective and being able to take in multiple signals because the AI is doing the work versus viewing those big screens where you've got 40 different camera views and people are the size of grains and you're trying one person to detect things. Or the security guard that's in the parking lot and they're in one parking lot with one peripheral human view. And instead, this is using multiple cameras, multiple angles to then alert that guard that you are paying for to get more effective and efficient use out of that guard service.
Very interesting. There's one term I was hoping you could clarify for the audience.
Yep.
For those of us who don't know what it means, and it was tailgating. You could put that,
Absolutely.
Tell us what
Tailgating
that
really
is.
where someone opens the door to let a guest in and some random person behind walks in and follows them. Maybe that person had a PIN code or was approved by security to come in, but 3 or 4 people follow behind. This is really big, especially on corporate campuses, college campuses, and also multi-tenant properties where guests should be checked in or there is a security procedure policy that requires such.
And how, if there's any kind of link to law enforcement, if you've got facial recognition, is there a way to ping, hey, this guy's got a warrant?
Yeah, there's a lot of technologies out there from license plate technologies that are automatically tied in with law enforcement. The partnership of corporate and, law enforcement community partnerships has evolved where, there's been retail or corporate investigations, hospital, death threats or incidents. And those license plates are then given to law enforcement, and whether they return to the business or they're used as license plate technology on the highway, they're able to intervene these people. And we're seeing that cross cooperation happen where sex offenders, human trafficking, known violent individuals, are being used in a cooperative, obviously they have to have probable cause and reason to be in there, but trying to alert and identify and better protect, community spaces.
That's so fascinating. So next question, from a technical perspective, what are some of the latest advancements in the video analytics? I know you'd mentioned like outliers or strange things, for lack of better terms, like and visual intelligence. How do they support human operators more effectively? Like, what's it looking for? What's it saying? Hey, that might be a gun that guy has, or what?
That's right. Yeah, some of the latest advancements in those video analytics and the intelligence and really how it's making humans more efficient. And I always like to say, not replacing humans, but enhancing. So the AI is supporting human security programs. It's prioritizing incidents and making it more effective. So how is it doing this? It's taking traditional CCTV that was super, super reactive. You hear of an incident, you go back, watch the recorded video, try to figure out what's going on, and it's turning those cameras into really proactive solutions. I like to say that AI and advanced solutions, they don't blink, they don't take a lunch break, they don't stop to check a text message or get distracted in a conversation. This allows multiple cameras to be reviewed by computer vision, is analyzing all the frames and all the images that are coming in real time. And then they're able to trigger or generate an alert. And some of these analytics, you can bucket and get a lot of them on one camera system, or you can choose, them a la carte. But license plate recognition, facial recognition, behavior recognition, down to the point of concealment, grab and dash, car theft. It's gotten highly, highly accurate to identify these things, weapon detection, setting up zones and saying if anyone crosses into this perimeter, this is the maintenance space. We should only have someone in this secured maintenance or cybersecurity data center during these hours. And if so, there's any motion and someone crosses that threshold, it's able to send a real-time event trigger. Again, humans will still review it. But you think about the efficiency and the precision of not needing to review data, not needing people there at all times. It's offering this real-time event analytics that otherwise, again, would have been a nearly impossible human task to review. It's as simple as setting a zone grid and saying, if this happens, then send me an event trigger for a human to review, that human in the loop oversight. And it really is prioritizing thousands and thousands of hours of video and lots of activity that's happening on multiple cameras to allow to flag for those events.
It's a proactive versus like long-term reactive. It's like, oh yeah, that happened a week ago. Run the tapes back. It used to be tapes, right?
That's
or
right.
The DVR and hope it wasn't rewritten.
It's still being used for investigations, right, as well. But again, way more efficient. So today, if you have traditional CCTV and you get an incident, somebody may say, hey, it happened at this time. The guy was wearing a blue hat and a white shirt. And you know what location it happened at. You're then going to that location, picking a certain time frame of when the person said it happened, reviewing all the cameras and starting to try to piece back that information. Right. Instead, today, there's the ability with video to say, show me everybody with a blue hat and a white shirt that comes in any of our camera frames in this 5-day period of time. And immediately at your fingertips, all those feeds come up, all those thumbnails for you to click on and view and piece it together. So something that would have taken hours, weeks, days is literally being done in minutes, all because these smart cameras, if you will, have the embedded AI and they're able to detect these things. And so proactive for real time, but also investigative efficiency as well.
Wow. I've just remembered rolling back, like, here's the 6 cameras. Like, where did we think we saw them? And bringing back, minute 142 and trying to snip
losing
that
them
out
on
of
view
there,
and then not knowing did they go
yeah.
left or right. So now I got to look at both the camera on the left and the right. And exactly.
Right. Oh, that's come a long way. So let's talk about the hardware aspect that you mentioned, cameras. What improvements in wiring and computing and smart cameras, hardware is impacting the industry versus what used to be traditional setups? Like, has it progressed, or are we strapping this on top of?
That's right. The hardware improvements, not just wiring, but especially the compute power and the smart camera hardwares that are impacting, not only the industry, but I would say the setup and the upgradability. So traditional wired security relied on central panels. They had limited flexibility, a lot of hardware, high labor, and also were very limited in modality in the ability to upgrade. So the latest technology comes out, sorry, you got to rip and replace everything. Modern IP is now leveraging network cables, so it's carrying both the video and the data and the power. And so it's not only simplified the installations, it's improved the resolution, it's allowed to embed those data analytics. And most importantly, they're all really, really tailored for easy upgrades. So cloud-based video solutions require little to no hardware. Gone are the traditional big video management solutions that everything you add on needs another drive or more hard drive, and you need to upgrade essentially the whole box. Now
Right.
cameras are acting as the edge device, and they have real-time analytics. So the camera itself has multi-modalities, and it can then do facial recognition, license plate recognition, analytics, all on a single edge-based device. But more importantly, it can then network or talk to other security solutions. So it can talk to those solar panel towers. It
Oh,
can
really?
integrate with access control. So really the embedded AI and edge cameras, they're reducing the hardware, they're increasing the efficiency, doing all that detection of anomalies, plates, and triggering those events, and being able to distinguish really patterns. They can differentiate an animal to a person. They can differentiate objects, a weapon to a car. And really, this reduces investigation time, it reduces noise, and it really optimizes false positives and the number of times people think they get a trigger and it's a rat going by and motion for the rat. So, the cameras with these analytics really are replacing what I would say was the traditional video management with cameras, hardwired, and then human security personnel constantly reviewing it. The reality is that statistically, most video is never even reviewed. It's really used reactively. So now having
100%.
proactive solutions that allow you to set zones by time, by location, detect people, cars, activities, and at certain times. Maybe it's okay that the parking lot is full during these hours, but at night, there should be no one there. And the technology now can alert you in real time. So the question is, do you have a guard on site that then gets that alert? Or, a lot less expensive using 24-hour guard command centers, or even cheaper labor, maybe a 24-hour on-staff maintenance person or the property manager.
Right. Question on the hardware, Dara. Have you seen any situations or case studies where you're able to use the existing wiring schema, like to replace
Yeah.
like old camera and take the old cameras off and put the new cameras on, or do you have
It
to
really
replace all of
depends
it?
if their wiring is network video cable or old analog cable. But it can be reused. I would also say a lot of times it depends on, did they put it in conduit and you've got conduit there? So it's a lot cheaper just to fish that wire through the pipes versus rip and
New
replace
wire.
ceilings and do all of that. And again, with PoE switches and the ability to have some of these cloud video solutions, you don't have to have everything running back 350 feet, 1,000 feet to a
Right.
central panel. You can have multiple small edge devices to allow you far less expensive, right? And then all of those edge devices are networked and talk to each other.
Maybe still in the future, but are there any legitimate Wi-Fi options for cameras?
I think from a security standpoint, once Wi-Fi and as Wi-Fi gets more stable, today there's plenty of Wi-Fi options for 3 to 4 cameras. So I'd say if people are interested in reducing cost and using more Wi-Fi, you need to look at battery operation and backup maintenance there. But you've also got to think about some of these solutions that are the solar panel. It's not just the towers that can be moved around in the parking lot, but the solar powered towers that can be mounted to the side of the building and don't require the infrastructure or running it back to some central command. If you've got limited space or limited number of cameras that you want to deploy, you can do Wi-Fi. You just want to make sure you've got backup Wi-Fi, and you're not going to do that with 30 cameras. You're talking 4 to 6.
So it would give you can get HD high resolution on because sometimes it is like a smaller building, right? And all you need is the 4 sides. So 4 cameras makes sense.
And we're seeing people use, battery powered cameras and change the power on them and use Wi-Fi. But, you've got to think about the security breaches of where Wi-Fi could be disrupted, hacks, breaches. I think we still have a long way to go there, where it's about the full security infrastructure. So it's kind of case by case there on how you want to go. But yeah, smaller locations, there's still a lot of opportunity there to have highly effective security and limit your cost. I always also go with overt versus covert. Have the signage. It's really the detect, deter, defend model, right? And part of the
Detect,
deter
deter,
is that
defend.
visibility.
Right. Like cameras in use, you're on video, right?
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
I remember the days we used to just put dummy cameras up and put a sign with a little red light in there.
Yeah, but actually, in the litigious world we live in now, and dummy cameras can be more of a risk, right?
Can they
Because then
really?
people have a, perceived sense of safety and security, or that an incident was covered on camera. So that's why we always, caution in the security world to have the cameras there, use them, make sure they're working, but put them in places where they're visible and have signage everywhere else that says the area is protected by security.
That's a very good point, Derek. Because I know. I mean, you can buy them anywhere. I know plenty of friends, I should say, like that have
Yeah,
those. Like a red dot. It's got a battery power in there, 10-year battery, and it's got a little red light in there, and it's not recording anything at all. It's just
yeah.
a deterrent system, and just
Well,
smiling
it's
on a camera.
interesting, Trevor, being in the world of facial recognition. There's a lot of companies out there, especially in the retail space, that use public view monitors, right? Those are the screens when you walk in on
See
camera and all of
yourself.
a sudden it may have an ad and then your face pops up like, hey, we see you, you're here shopping. And oftentimes when you get close enough to them, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it puts that green box around your face. Well,
Mm-mm.
a lot of people have perceived that that is facial recognition and that facial recognition is in use. It's not facial recognition. It's face detection. It's detecting that a face is in that space. So,
Hmm.
again, it's an overt opportunity to say, hey, we see you, but highly effective.
Interesting. So it's like, yeah, it's just hey, there's a face, and they're probably not even recording. It's
Yep,
just
that's
it's just a
exactly
video
right.
camera, right? But again, if you're a crook and you see that, you're probably going to go to the next store,
Yep.
right?
Exactly. Well, again, it's about harden the target. And
Uh,
so when you think
uh,
about property management, you think about how you secure and you not just have, hey, we want to have a perceived sense of safety. We want to make this safer and we want our tenants to feel safer and we want people to come here to second guess. I think that really starts with the first line of defense, right? How hard it is to access the building. Are there cameras at most of the main entry points? And then what
mm,
solutions or technologies have you deployed? What policies and procedures do you have to ensure that it's safe? And it really has gotten a lot more effective, efficient, and safer. So again, looking at a security budget, and I know guard services from my past career, and I am well familiar with the cost of them, and that's continued to go up, right? And
by
guards
like
are
a
often
lot.
one person, and they can't be all places at all times.
Mm-mm.
So the evolution is moving to invest in advanced video technology solutions, use computer vision on the cameras, and then have those alerts trigger to multiple sources. It could be a command center of
Mm-hmm.
guard services, off-site, where you're paying for the same security company like an Allied or whoever your guards are with now, or you're using your tenant management, but somebody is getting those notifications, somebody is getting the response. And, I'd say from what we've seen, it's far more effective, it's far more efficient, it's more reliable, and it's capturing far more incidents.
So that puts us into the next question. Like when we're talking about planning as a apartment owner, how should property owners bake this into their CapEx forecasting, like in when they're planning like the 2 to 5 year outlook? What do you see? Because I know things are progressing quickly, and every 18 months things double, et cetera. But how would you advise us to plan when technology is moving so quickly?
Yeah, I would say that the first line of defense is looking what your current spend is, right? So when you're looking at how these solutions can improve safety, but also how do you streamline operations and what does that 2 to 5 year plan look like? I'd say it's all about safety and the key principle of people feeling safe. And so what are you currently spending on safety and security today? I think really understanding your P&Ls there is the
Mm-hmm.
first line of defense. And then where do you cut costs? So let's talk about guard services. What
Right,
does your guard service budget look like? And if you
hundred
could
thousand.
reduce that, right. So if you could reduce that by 30%, then, I'm not saying replace all human security. I believe in the human in the loop, whether they're on site, off site, but
Of
there's
course, yeah.
definitely a way to make it more effective and efficient by automating and supporting the humans that you do use, the guard
Mm-hmm.
services that you do use. or the informal guards of tenant management. So advanced analytics that can automate what would be done, the visibility of proactive solutions that can deter. So where can you put, a guard tower? A lot of these guard towers that include some license plate recognition, strobe, automated AI alerting based on car, you're wearing a red shirt, and also triggering to the command center if it meets enough criteria, right? We have a person in an unrestricted space. We have a behavior that shows a car break-in, and we have a license plate that's on the watch list known for car break-ins. Then those alerts can be prioritized to a 24-hour command center where lower level alerts just use the automated AI. Hey, we see you, get out of here. Police have been, notified. And so those guard towers, you're talking, anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 a year. But the visibility of them and the visibility that the entire perimeter, the strobing, and then start running your ROI models. You can see year over year incidents or month over month incidents of reduction in violence, reduction in reported incidents. I would say you don't need a camera at every angle, Trevor. If the budget is tight, work on key views that allow you to have the most visibility, and then set it up for time zones, specific detection, motion lights. Again, think about the perimeter, first line of defense, because typically once they, breach the entry, you hope that perimeter protection is there. So start with the perimeter. And then, I would say access control, whatever access control looks like. I do believe that there's easy ways to upgrade it. And frankly, education to the tenants on how it's being used so that they understand there's not a person out there. If it makes it easier for them to allow entry for their loved ones and guests, and they then, as an added benefit, get enhanced security, everybody should be all in to me. So don't think of it as rip and replace, especially if you have already security solutions. I'd partner with the right companies, the right solution providers that look at your current model and say, what can we upgrade in advance to make this cost efficient and don't have to add to our CAPEX or our OPEX. Let's look at where we can maybe spend on CAPEX, reduce significant OPEX by using automated computer vision.
I imagine it must, with security guards, there is a certain risk of escalation to the event.
Right. Yeah. And that's why, you want the human in the loop, but how do you reduce confrontation?
Right.
Security guards can lead to confrontation. And so how do you reduce that effectively and efficiently? How do you, detect and then deter somebody effectively? Oftentimes we have you on camera, we see you, and police have been dispatched is enough to get people out of there. And then the added benefit is you're avoiding an in-person to person violent confrontation. You avoid potentially a tenant or somebody that wants to go intervene. And so, you're still using humans in the loop, but you're trying to mitigate violence.
Absolutely. Or confrontation or anything that could be interpreted by a judge or jury, because we don't want that.
But I'd also say, when you think of your ROI, one of the challenges with cameras, and I've been in the business for 21 years, cameras are very hard to put an ROI on. The reason being, you never know how many people come in, look up, see that camera, and make a different decision. And so you've got to really look at, year over year incidents and threats and break-ins and all those things to really try to analyze it. But the deterrence of cameras, the deterrence of what we've seen with public view monitors, signage, all really important in your overall security program.
Let's go a little bit deeper into the AI's role in all of this, right? Because you were talking about analytics and looking back on that. How do you see AI-powered visual intelligence transforming security monitoring, both in terms of automation and accuracy? So
I think as we look at how it evolves and its automation and improving accuracy from a security standpoint, I would say that it's highly, highly accurate. When you look at license plate and facial recognition, the there's been studies out there of, how humans do in a lineup of 10 or 20 people and, flipping the page in a matter of seconds. The video analytics, not perfect, but highly, highly accurate. And still, a human at the end of the day has to take in that data, see the side by side, and make that decision. We're seeing where men have literally dressed as women and shaved their beards and, put on makeup. And facial recognition is still detecting them, where a human would not. I mean, I've looked at it and said, there's no way that's the same person. And it is. The technology is really, automating what humans did. And again, it's eyes on every corner that don't blink, that are on 24 hours a day, that don't yawn, don't sneeze, don't get tired, don't take a lunch break, all of these things. And so, it can become far more efficient, and you're removing the burden of a human having to detect those hazards and threats 24/7 in real time. And you're using the AI, and even if it's not perfect, all it's doing is taking those events, sending it to a human, and providing more precise data and insights that then they can use to really mitigate violence, prevent, and also then say, nope, this is all okay. I see what this is. This is a delivery person, and this is an exception to the rules. So it's not feasible to have a security guard 24/7. But it is feasible to have a guard tower that, is 24 hours there with strobe lights recording. Now, is it as effective? To be determined, but it still could then alert guards or alert law enforcement that may come in greater force than one security guard by himself up against multiple people. I'd say when you look at the automation of AI and computer vision, not just like for security, right? But for customer service. I like to say, look at ChatGPT and generative AI, right? Generative AI is now being used in customer service, where I believe personally, there was a major gap for the last few years. Banks, healthcare, online ordering, customer service was garbage. And they got rid of all the humans, and maybe the AI wasn't there. But today, for the most part, those websites, you can send in a request for a return or customer service, and you're getting highly accurate responses back.
You really are.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it can be tailored to the industry, whether it's healthcare, retail, property management. It can then dissect and detect, okay, this is a P1. This is beyond the AI. And it can use trigger words, somebody cursing at the email, to then prioritize and send that to a human. And so I think we live in a world where people want things now. They want it at their fingertips, and customer service is no exception. But blending that balance, the most successful companies are going to be the ones that provide a balance of human associates and AI. Let the AI reduce a lot of the things that humans were doing that were basic elementary tasks, and then keep the humans in the loop for priority responses, and let the AI do the things that don't really require human intervention. And guess what? Then the items that require human intervention are getting better, more engaged, quality human, customer service. So I think it's critical. And I also would say, as technology advances, I think there's a hybrid of it. It's going to go hand in hand. The customer service and the security opportunities, whether it be in your access control, whether it be able to go into the parking lot structure and say, hey, John, my friend Trevor's behind me, let him in, and he approves to scan his license plate and face. And then you pull up and, hi, Trevor, we're going to scan your plate and license plate. Do you approve? And you enroll in the system, and now you're a guest. A lot of these things are reducing friction and increasing security and customer service all in one bucket.
And it brings me to one question that you mentioned on there is, are any of these cameras able to pick up sound?
So there are cameras that are using sound detection, and they're also using audio recording. So state by state, obviously, like California, you can't be recording someone without their consent. But there are sound detection. So that's being used a lot with weapons. So weapon detection is often multi-factor authentication. So it's using sound of what is known to be gunshot versus fireworks or, car backfire. It's using motion and light, so the blast of a gun, and then it's using object for shapes of known weapons. So it's not just one thing, it's multi-factor authentication that is then saying we've identified a weapon.
Because, we manage some pretty challenging properties that are known gang-related issues there all the time. And it's hard to hire someone to be an on-site manager when their life's at stake, right?
That's
risk.
right.
So, and there's gunshots happening all over the place all the time. And so what you're saying, if you're able to take the manager out of the harm's way and they are able to, the AI's got it triangulates 3 different data points and is able to send it there. Is it able to call the police? I mean, if it determines like, hey, this is gunshots.
So there are
multiple
solutions
shots.
and companies now that partner and trigger in the integration. So you get a weapons detection alert. Typically it'll have somebody validate looking at the video and say, yes, this is, and then automated from there can dispatch police. And more importantly, there's solutions that allow police then real time to get the video. And so they're receiving that video through these companies and aiding and assisting. There's a company, Rapid SOS, that's doing a ton of stuff with 911 and video to support law enforcement. We're seeing it in communities that have safer spaces where, they're using license plate, facial recognition, any kind of, analytic technology and partnering with businesses, hospitals to really get that real-time tool. And it's really to provide police with more informed decision-making and to help identify, the incidents and validate them.
And which is awesome. And then you have the other side of it where, well, we're being big brother now, right?
That's right.
Privacy becomes a major concern, right? Which leads me kind of into my next question with this is, what are the privacy implications landlords need to consider when adopting these technologies, especially in a residential setting, because we're super regulated?
That's right. I think that the privacy implications that landlords, really need to consider, especially if you're looking to adopt what I would say is advanced technologies in the residential setting, are really going to be taking into consideration. The first thing is informed consent and disclosure. So, number one, partnering with solution providers that know the regulatory landscape, understand, the rules, and really have governance behind the programs, clear notice and signage of what is being used and how it's being used. Education on the technology. I think that's always really important. When people understand, look, we're not using this to track tenants and their activity. This is how we're using it. We're being used to protect them. I'm very big on town halls and educational seminars. When you want to deploy a specific technology, especially in, multifamily or property management scenarios, send out notice, let them know this is what we want to deploy. This is why we're deploying it, and have the vendor come in and talk about what the technology is and isn't. Unfortunately, we live in a world where a lot of people only read the headlines. So they think Big Brother surveillance. There's a lot of people that think that facial recognition, I'm walking down the street and it's there's Dara, there's Trevor. They know us by name. They've got our height and build and all that. That's not what it is. It's face matching. And
this
it's
is in
only
China,
matching.
dang it.
Yeah, it's only matching on in a security setting, known individuals that are in a watch list for probable cause, have been a threat, violence. Maybe it's a tenant that has a restraining order against a former partner, or a vendor who, was nefarious and he stole or had, inappropriate behavior. For an access control setting, it would be all opt-in. All of the users are saying, I choose to opt in for this value exchange, to not have to pull out a fob key, fumble with my phone, put in a pin pad and touch something that somebody else has already touched. And instead I just go up to it, it does my iris. And then, oh, by the way, it also prevents some creeper from tailgating in behind me. So I think educating people on how it works. I always talk about, I call it my soccer mom theory, or, the philosophy that I had once I was in facial recognition, and I'd be on the soccer field and other parents would say, well, what do you do for a living? And I'd say, well, I'm in facial recognition. And they'd look at me as if I had 4 eyes, like, oh, that's Big Brother. And once I explained what the technology was, that,
Right.
in a business, in a hospital, and in retail, and organizations that are using it for corporate campus security, it's not being used to recognize everybody. It is face matching and only matching on known individuals that have caused threat, loss, or disruption.
Hmm.
And as I explained it to them, all of a sudden it's, why isn't everybody using that? Why isn't
Why
that
isn't this out of
everywhere?
schools? Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so I think the dialogue has shifted from why are people using that, or how would it be used, to why aren't we using this? And I think everybody's mind changes the second there's an active shooter on the loose, or the second when there's a child abduction, right? The more
Right.
you had these technologies where we could identify Amber Alerts, more license plate, more facial recognition. But we do live in a world where we need to be mindful of security, safety. There's a lot of sensitivity right now with ICE and license plate recognition and targeted. And I don't
Mhm.
think that's how the technology should be used. It should really be used when there's a known threat for life safety and security and perimeter protection in spaces that should be regulated, like where you live, right? It should
Right.
not be public for anyone. It should be a private space, even if it's a multi-tenant home. So I think, looking at the Fair Housing Act and having rules for retention of data and really
Mhm.
sharing how it's being used, that all goes down to partnering with the providers and being aware that using it for security when it's a non opt-in environment is different than using it for access control and cooperative and those sort of things where you would be asking people to opt in. And so there are different policies, procedures that you have to keep in mind. To me, for security, it's a no-brainer, but you also have to be mindful that you want the tenants to understand it's not tracking them. It's only going to alert or trigger when, somebody that you don't want in here has entered.
Right. And then usually the ones that are not interested or don't want to be are the ones you want to look at a little further in, because security is a big amenity. It's 2025 Zillow report. It's one of the top 5, I believe, if not. I think fee disclosure was the first one, and the second one was secure premises, controlled access. We can't say secure in fair housing, right? It can't be secure building, because
Right,
and then you're giving a false sense of security by fair
right.
housing laws. But
Yeah,
it's controlled access is what we call it. But this is a controlled access with teeth, in a sense,
that's
like what,
right. Well,
right?
and also, really, as technology evolves, I do think it's a crawl, walk, run. As I said, you have perimeter
Hmm.
protection. You don't need to use facial recognition on the perimeter that may have access in a camera view to a public space where
Right.
someone's not being notified. But if it's an opt-in in the access control device, and you need to get enrolled and registered as a tenant or as a vendor or as a guest, and it's usually not just face. It's, face and iris, face and voice, face and pin code. There's multiple opportunities. But again, hardening the target often requires more than just your traditional, here's a 4-digit code or a security fob key.
Right.
And criminals are getting smarter. And I also think that good old traditional CCTV, even without the analytics, is the first line of defense. The analytics, as simple as narrowing all the video to motion zones, they're very simple ways to create events without biometric technology, without some of these advanced technologies that will not only improve security dramatically, improve operational efficiency, and more so the investigations, right? My car was
Right.
broken into, and then you're able to pinpoint versus looking back through months and months of video trying to determine.
Right. Right. And last question, because I know we've been time flies when you're having rum. Last but not least, how should companies and landlords ensure that our AI and security systems remain both effective and, I guess, ethically sound over time? I mean, Moore's law tells us that every 18 months, technology is gonna double. So how do we get in front of, and like that the AI we install now isn't going to be antiquated in 2 years after we spent all this money on it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that companies, if they want to ensure what their AI and security systems look like, right, not only for effectiveness, but being ethically sound, and then that the technology advances with you as technology advances, I think the first step is having clear written AI and security policies and procedures that are
Mm,
transparent to all tenants, all guests, that talk about who can access the system, their roles and permissions, have robust training for the users.
mm,
And so the transparency to the tenants and the guests to understand how it's being used. Facial recognition is a big one, right? People,
right.
you want to make sure it's ethically sound. People are often concerned about bias. It's clearly misunderstood a lot of times. It's not looking at the color of your skin or your makeup or your facial hair. It's detecting landmarks on your face. So when you look at biometric technology, when you look at behavior analytics, when you look at license plate, they're all going to continue to advance, but build the framework, have your pillars
Mm,
of transparency and trust built, and then those will evolve as the technology evolves with it. But, starting with clear policy and procedure, having town halls where the vendors talk to the tenants and everybody knows exactly what's being used and how it's being used, and that, compliance is there. Really, you want them to be partners with you. And
right.
I believe that once, people understand how it's being used, and if you're using it in the right way, your best advocates are going to be your tenants, because this is where they live and they want to feel safe. I mean, that should be their safe space.
100%. And on that, and maybe you can speak to, maybe you cannot, and I understand. Is there a leading camera manufacturer hardware that you would recommend for like the actual capturing of the video, like the video camera? Like what?
No, I mean, there's a ton out there that are best in class in doing it. Some of the big ones I can think of are, Hanwha and Access. Those are some of the key pillar. You got Pelco, you got Bosch, you've got Avigilon. I mean, there's a number of
Wow.
great companies out there that are doing high res, offering analytics on edge. I think partnering with providers that show you a roadmap that this technology is going to advance. They can switch out the chips, they can advance the cameras as it advances with you. I think that that is key, but also companies that can support you. So you're not just deploying a software or a solution,
Mhm.
you're deploying a program. And the solution provider is supporting the entire program, including helping with the policy, the procedure, the updates to the technology. So I think those are all key.
Interesting. So they become a partner. So it's not like, oh, I'm buying cameras, I'm going to have my handyman install it. It's a solution and a partnership.
I would say, Trevor, when it comes to advanced analytics and technology, especially computer vision, it should never be a transactional sale. It should
It's
be
good
a
to know.
relationship, a program, and you want them to be involved. And I think that if somebody doesn't want to be, I'd run for the hills and find another solution provider. I think also,
Uh,
especially as it advances in property management, there's a key opportunity with some of these solution providers to help build a market or data analytics that are tailored and custom specifically to property management. We've seen this with healthcare, we've seen it with government, we've seen it with retail, on what they need in AI to detect anomalies at skip scans, at self checkout, right? So,
mhm.
what are the AI technologies that would help property management, and find a partner that wants to build those with you?
Yeah. I mean, one of the ones right at the top of my head would be like, how many residents are in one unit, right? Got so and so walking in from 202, and so five other people are coming in behind them that aren't from 202, but they're going in 202 and sleeping there. 202 is a
Yeah,
studio, right? Then you got to
right,
have, then you got six people living in a unit. That's one of the very
right.
first things that comes to mind I'm thinking smart
Yeah.
intercoms, like
Well,
third
and it's
gen.
interesting, right? You don't need face. You don't need, a lot of times you can just use body detection anonymously. You can do people counting. There's a lot of things you can do to trigger and identify that. And I never thought about that. There's got to be a safety hazard too when you think about collapsed balconies or the weight of
Oh,
people and things.
completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, fire code.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 2.5
Super
people per
interesting.
room, right?
Yeah.
The habitability code says 2.5 people per bedroom. Literally.
Yeah. And there's eight.
Yeah, oh yeah, you'd be surprised what we've walked into. It
Wow.
would be on the short side. Yeah. Dara, what's the most underrated tech tool for property security today?
What's the most underrated tech tool for property management today? I'd have to say AI driven threat detection and perimeter defense. I think that when you think about license plate, video analytics, how many people are coming in, for security, I just think that right now you got video cameras videoing and advancing and having automated threat detection for weapons, people, cars. It could be game changing.
What's one myth about facial recognition or AI you wish more people understood?
One myth about face recognition or I think it goes hand in hand with both, but I think good old CSI and Hollywood have created myths that are unbelievable about how the technology works, and it's just not there. And so I would say, for face, it's we touched on it a little bit, but it's really not based on the hue of your skin. It's about landmarks on the face, and it's not recognizing every single person that walks into frame. It's only matching on known individuals that are on a watch list, right? That have caused threat or disruption. And then I would say for just AI broadly, Trevor, it's advanced. Okay, I know people are scared of it. They think it's going to replace humans. It's gotten where it's very, very accurate, but it's not replacing humans. It's automating what it's doing. Think of the doctor that's doing the surgery. AI may be involved, but whether the robot's doing the surgery and the doctor's monitoring the robot or the AI is assisting, it's really the combination of computer vision or artificial intelligence and human intelligence combined. And to me, you need human intelligence for, context, for analyzing, for instinct, human interpretation, all the things that AI is not going to ever do. But the AI is more efficient, real time, and its processing capabilities. So when you combine the two, and there's a human still making the decision making, I would say that people are still misunderstood, thinking it's replacing people.
What's the best leadership advice you've ever received?
Okay, so leadership advice that I've ever received, the best leadership advice, I would say it's not direct advice, but Steve Jobs, if you've ever heard the thinker and the doer, right? The art and science of the thinker and then the action of the doer. I would say that the people that do work, right, through solving problems, intellectual thought process, hardworking. When I look at people, I do value their education and their degree, but I also think street smart and experience are important. I think that great leaders are the ones that can both be a thinker and a doer. And so I always look for that. I would also say my famous statement is I've learned more from what not to do from bad leaders than what I've learned from great leaders, and not to take away from the tremendous, amazing leaders that I've had the great privilege of working with, learned a ton from them. But pinpointing and learning from bad leadership and watching how it changes cultures or people, I think those are key takeaways that, have been transformative in my career and gained insight on what can make or break a company.
Love that, by the way. I don't think I've ever, as you explained that quite eloquently. Thank you, Dara. If you don't know what you want to do, sometimes you want to start doing just start doing things and figure out what you want to do by figuring out what you don't want to do.
Yep, exactly.
Here I am talking. Well, next, moving on. What's one emerging technology you're personally excited about?
Emerging technology that I'm probably most personally excited about, I'd probably say behavior recognition. I think that it's getting better and better. And I think that not only in the security application, but how we see it in how it can advance AI and, detect anomalies. It doesn't need to just be, shelf sweep or grab and dash, but really precise behaviors. And then I'd also say healthcare AI, when we look at how they're analyzing your genetic makeup, your genetic markers, your DNA, your heritage, and your overall health metrics to identify the possibility of disease or chronic issues. before all of our health files sat in manila folders in doctors' offices individually. And as people are willing to share what my makeup, what my build is, and, the disease that I have and trace it back to potential causes, I think that the opportunity there for curing some of these diseases for our children's future, maybe our grandchildren's future, are really there. And I think it's all going to be done through the insights and the analytics and the precision that those data insights of AI are going to evolve us to.
What city or market do you think is most ripe for AI?
City or market? I'm not going to go city because that's case by case, and I think could get on either side of the aisle. But I'd say healthcare market. I think that I've been taken back by the statistics in healthcare and hospitals, how many threats against doctors, and not just threats, violent actions against doctors. Really? And the latest UHC CEO, that was murdered, really understanding that. But it's also beyond that. It's advanced cybersecurity with all the data, right? It's not just our social security. It's private HIPAA information. And I think it's premise security. And so I think that market has a huge opportunity to use AI, cybersecurity, and advance. Not that a lot of industries don't, but I think that they've got a lot of opportunity for growth, and they're starting to advance it now. And I think that would be a remarkable transformation.
Last question. What's Dara's top principle when advising startups building in the AI facial recognition space?
Yeah, I think the top principle especially for startups in the AI space, is staying core to privacy and ethics, right? Privacy by design, staying focused on both product development and risk management. I would say it's about being lean and mean. You see so many of these startups, right? Especially if they get a small raise, they start hiring for roles, but they don't have the revenue to support those roles. And that's what we see a pattern of in a lot of startups. So I would say that in AI, especially in that space, hire as the revenue comes in, best in class process with governance, policies, procedures, and solid risk management. And then really learn from your clients so that your marketing message is educational marketing, not fluff and this is how fancy we are, but you really want to be educational on what the technology can and can't do in a realistic manner. So building use cases. The greatest thing about, technology like AI is you don't just need to tell someone what it can do. You can actually show them what it has done. And so I think that for me, in the startup world that I lived in and now advising startups, using your clients, they become your best salespeople. They're your partners. And so using them to stay agile and build to the customer needs and the market fit with that privacy and governance wrapped up in a bow, I think those are critical to success.
And since you said that, bonus question here, Dara, you are advising exclusively to startups now, right?
Startups in AI predominantly.
If I was building an AI recognition company, I would definitely have you on my team to some capacity. So how would someone who's listening to this, how would they get a hold of you to get you consult, to get you on your team as a fractional?
Yeah, the exit was just recent. So I've just started to build this out, and I've sat on boards previously, and so the consulting at this point has really been on the AI companies that the investors are looking to invest in, and supporting both the investors to make that call as well as the AI companies of what they need to get the investment or where there's gaps. As the future rolls out, looking at consulting specifically to startups trying to build their company or go for raises is the next phase. And I'm on LinkedIn. Anybody can reach out to me. I'm still kind of polishing off and enjoying the fruits of our labor for the last 6 years, and then moving into what the next adventure looks like. But certainly, I look forward to anyone's outreach on LinkedIn.
And we will make sure we post your links in the transcripts on all of the channels, Dara. So
appreciate that, Trevor. Appreciate you having me on.
And that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much for your time, Dara. I know it is very precious and time is life. So I thank you again for humoring me on our little podcast here, because I know you have such bigger and crazier, better things to do with changing the world over there as you are. So,
No, this was a
thank you
blast.
again.
Thanks for including me. Thoughtful questions and appreciate the time.
Same here. Thank you. And
Thanks, Trevor.